well, I'll start by asking, of course, there's mostly a British cast, and they allow you to use your own accent and stuff. It must have felt very homely, considering the sort of quite supernatural surroundings.
It couldn't have felt less homely, if I'm honest with you. We went to the other side of the planet to shoot. I guess the familiarity of the culture was interesting, but actually walking on set was, it was escapism to the extreme for the actors as well as the audience, I guess.
Well, because obviously the characters are on a journey, are kind of embarking on an adventure through a kind of foreign land. Did that almost mirror yourself as an actor, that you were kind of going to New Zealand to do this trilogy of movies? Yeah,
definitely. I think it really informed everyone's performances, particularly because, as you said, half of the cast came from the Northern Hemisphere and half from the Southern Hemisphere coming together. I mean, that's not dissimilar to the dwarves meeting in Bag End from all parts of Middle-earth and going on a quest together. It sort of mirrors what's happening to the actors, yeah.
And the dwarves are like a kind of band of brothers. There's a real kind of unity amongst them. And given that you were all sort of spending so much time in New Zealand together, it must have been a bit like a summer camp, I suppose. Did that help the kind of team spirit? That?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think it was slightly marred by the endurance that became being a dwarf, which was in varying degrees according to how much makeup and prosthetics you were wearing. So, yeah, there was a certain amount of discomfort whilst we were working, but then, we certainly let our hair down, after work, and did a lot of bonding.
And I read that you were leaping out of bed in the morning of excitement to sort of go into the shoot.
Who said that?
I read that in one of your own interviews.
I was limping out of bed in the morning, yeah.
But I mean, this must have been such an incredible experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, like no other experience I've had, in terms of my work. And, when we were shooting some of those barrel sequences, I think I did leap out of bed on one morning. It was like going to a theme park every day and getting in a log flume for 3.5 weeks. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to get up for.
And I mean, in this film, Thorin, he takes a bit of a darker turn. He starts getting overcome by greed, and there's a kind of addiction comes into it. Lots of quite very human themes. That must have been quite fun to play around with.
Yeah, I mean, you really only just see a glimmer of that in the last sort of 20 minutes of the movie, which is really going to propel us into the movie 3. Thorin opens up and changes more in this film than in either of the first or third films in terms of accepting Bilbo, questioning his own judgment and changing. So yeah, it's quite an interesting journey for him.
And that's for playing one of the dwarves, because I read that you had a kind of lift in your boots just to elevate you slightly above the other dwarfs, and obviously you've got all this massive kind of armoury and all the costume and whatnot. It must have been quite hard to feel small, considering that you must have been quite built up, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's quite an interesting aspect of the character, because I don't think there was ever a moment where we wanted to feel small. I think dwarves by nature think that they are huge. They have big egos. You just have to look at Erebor and the way that that's built to know that they have a huge amount of self-assurance. So feeling bigger than myself for the entire shoot was really useful to creating those characters who truly believe they are masters of the universe. They just happen to be some weird giants that live in the wood next door called the Wood Elves,
And you're saying as well that you've seen the film twice now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the movie is made up of kind of fighting, the orcs or dragons and etc. Was it, when you see the finished product, are you kind of blown away by how different it must have looked, I imagine, to what you shot?
It's a combination of both, because when you're shooting those sequences, for example, with the dragon, you've created a dragon in your mind, so there's always the chance that the final dragon will be disappointing. But in this instance, there wasn't everything surpassed my expectations, particularly the dragon. I mean, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. I find it kind of fearsome and awesome and really quite beautiful, which I didn't expect.
What do you think the fans of this franchise can expect from this second offering that's slightly different to what we saw in the first film?
Well, we begin the movie literally running, and it just gets faster, and we meet the most incredible characters. We meet Beorn, we meet Thranduil, we meet Bard, the Master of Lake Town, and we finally see that dragon that's been talked about since 1937 when Tolkien first wrote the book, which to see that finally realised on the screen is really exciting.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You too.